eventually be the quarterback of the
Correct.
Pittsburgh Steelers. But my prediction is not only that Mitch Trubisky, he's going to be their starter week 1 of this year, he's going to be someone's starter week 1 of next year. I have always been a Trubisky believer. He never had a shot in Chicago. That was a mess that was mostly not of his making.
Right.
And I think the Steelers I think people are sleeping on Pittsburgh. They've got great weapons. They've got a great running back. They've got a great defense. They have a quarterback who I think can make some plays. He can do some things. He's not a superstar, but he's not nearly as bad as I think people have positioned him to be. How concerned are we about the offensive line? Because, Jeff, if they are average, I think the Steelers are in contention for that division all year long.
I agree with you if they are average. They are not average. Listen, Trubisky's ability to avoid sacks and pressure is going to be the key to their season. I am 100% with you, and it's hard for me to ever bet against Mike Tomlin. I mean, they went 8-8 with you and I playing quarterback.
Right.
So, just from one position doesn't, and their defense is absolutely legitimate. Their offensive line is a grave concern to me. And you asked me about Tampa's very little. This is a worry if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers in a division where they play the Ravens, they play the Browns defense. They play some good defensive lines, even Cincy. Yep. Yeah, they will get after you. So it's not that they can just walk through this division or somebody's going to be. This is a tough draw for the Steelers. I don't think they make the playoffs, but not because of Trubisky. I'm with you. I think he starts all year.
Now, Bart, let's just bear in mind, Bart cannot be unbiased when it comes to talking about the Steelers.
No chance.
Finally!
What do you think?
I don't think this is a playoff team. This could be Mike Tomlin's first losing season. Now, he's one of the best coaches in the business, and I love him to death. I love the way he goes about his business. He always holds his players accountable. But the issue is the AFC. The AFC and just all the star power, the young star power for the future and beyond is in the AFC. And if you don't have a above average quarterback that can be a plus multiplier for the players around him, you don't have a shot in this division. I don't think you have an opportunity to just kind of sneak your way in, being an okay quarterback and running the ball and playing solid defense and trying to ugly it up. Because these quarterbacks can overcome in this division can overcome the X and O's.
What do you think, Dan Graziano? What are we hearing out of there again? We expect him to be named the starting quarterback today.
The concerns about the offensive line, they do believe in their defense. They obviously believe in their head coach. I will challenge you on this, Jeff Saturday. I don't think Mitch Trubisky plays all 17 games. At some point this year, I do think they will go to Kenny Pickett because he is the future. But at the start,
now, if they're winning, I mean, if you're winning, you don't change the quarterback,
fair
right?
enough. Big if.
So you don't see them. So you're more on their side than on mine, particularly on Bart's side than on mine about the Steelers?
I think, remember what you said about the Patriots? If their coach had, it was anybody else, then we'd be saying
they have better players. No, I'm not. We'll come back to this. The Steelers have better.
Personally, and he'll continue to work those out. From a football perspective, to your point, when you walk on that field, there's not a guy better in the NFL of blocking out the noise. When he hits in between those lines, when he hits the locker room and with the guys, he will be laser focused. He is the driver of this organization. You know, we talked about Bruce Arians back when they first joined, and now Todd Bowles. And what does that look like? It's not the head coach. It's not the general manager. It's no one else. It is Tom Brady is the driver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So as he walks in that building, everybody else takes their cues from him. He will be spot on. He will continue to tell guys where they should be, how they should be. This is the best opportunity for us to win. It will have no impact on their football season.
So, Bart, I mean, no one went up against him more in their career than you. Directly against him. You're the linebacker staring across when you're in Baltimore with those great defenses and then the division with the Jets.
Yeah.
His focus is obviously the key to his success. Are you at all concerned?
To just point zero. I mean, athletes are able, especially the great ones, to compartmentalize, what the task at hand is. When you walk in those buildings, nothing outside of those buildings can touch you. You're not worried about anything. You're around your brothers. Everybody there is locked in at the task at hand. It takes everything that you have to sacrifice for your body, your mind, and being able to play at a high level. And the standard for him is high. He's the greatest to ever do it. And I think he's trying to create even more distance. I think last year really left a sour taste in his mouth. He wanted to go out with the storybook ending. He has an opportunity to do that, but he has to be all in if that's going to be the narrative.
Yeah, let me say this. He goes away for 11, however many days. He was
11
gone.
days.
Walks back into Indianapolis in the preseason game. and the dude is locked in.
Yeah.
Line locked in, offense locked in, tempo locked in. Like I looked at it, I was like, is this week 8? And it's the preseason game. And this guy, he don't even need to play in the preseason, but how he got, and again, you see the tempo, the energy, it all stems from him. He didn't go to Tennessee. This was their first look on the field together. Man, like it's an amazing feat that he has the ability to do it.
As I turn to Dan, we can show you their first 4 games are tough. I mean, the Buccaneers will not start it easily. And Chrissy, if we can put up their first 4 games. They open with Dallas. That's not an easy game. At the Saints, that's been their nemesis.
Yeah,
Then he's got Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes back-to-back weeks. How are we feeling and what are we hearing coming out of Tampa right now, Dan?
Well, I think everything is good, to Jeff's point, on the field in terms of in the locker room. Like when he is in the building, you talk to people there anytime in the last couple of years, when Tom is in the building, things feel all's right with the world.
Right.
And when he came back from his absence, my understanding is that's been the feeling in the building. He talked in that same podcast episode last night about stuff he's doing to try and motivate his offensive linemen, like telling people the negative things that are being written about them and all that kind of stuff. And so, like, he's still doing all the football stuff and the get ready for the season stuff, even while obviously something significant's going on in his life.
Then let me do that job for him right now, Jeff Saturday. The interior of their offensive line is a real problem. If they have an Achilles heel right now, it's that. Is that right or wrong?
Wrong. I mean, it is a concern, not a worry. And at left guard in particular, but everywhere else, they will be just fine. They will go. And listen, if there is a guy in the business who understands how to dictate to defenses how he can get himself protected, it's that guy. Before the play has even begun, he knows where he's going with the ball and how to manipulate the defense. I don't have a concern with him having for the entire season.
Okay, there's no one whose opinion on offensive line I respect more than yours, so I like that. Bart, give me the defensive side. If you're facing them week 1, knowing what you know about the interior of their offensive line, what are you doing?
I'm attacking the A gaps and the B gaps. I understand
that's inside. You're going directly up the middle.
Yeah, and because that's always been a knock on Tom. If you want to have success against Tom, get him off his spot, hit him early. If you hit him early, then he'll start to kind of have that eternal clock. The only concern I have is when you look at the teams that he's playing the first 4 games, they have quarterbacks that can match his football acumen. You talk about those are great players as well. That's going to force him to play at a high level. I don't know if you have a couple of mishaps like right there. You look at him losing the ball, interior pressure. Something about the Saints. They have a beat. They have a beat at what they have, and if they struggle early,
that's because they beat you at all 5 positions on offensive line. That's the Saints. It's not just an interior. It's all 5.
Are you concerned with? I'm concerned with Todd Bowles and like the narrative that will be made if they struggle early on, and how that affects the rest of the team.
Let me jump to something else here, but we can come back to that. There's a lot there, and obviously he gets Micah Parsons on Sunday night. But our next stop is Baltimore, and this is a very interesting and important story. We just had Mark Andrews, the tight end there from Baltimore, on talking about how locked in and focused Lamar Jackson continues to be despite his self-imposed contract deadline as the season begins on Sunday. John Harbaugh was talking about this yesterday, about the lack of a new deal for his quarterback. Here's the coach.
He's hopeful to get a new contract. We're hopeful to get him a new contract. But all the rest of it is business. I mean, there's nothing other than coming to something that's mutually agreeable. That's the way all these deals are done, So, obviously I'm very hopeful, and I think I know everybody's really hopeful to get it done. My interactions with Lamar have been all football, and he's been focused and locked in on that 100% from a football standpoint.
All right, first of all, that's like how to handle that question 101, right? You can't do it better than John Harbaugh just did it. That said, Dan Graziano, I thought the insight that you shared with us earlier today about just how cohesive they truly are between Lamar and the front office, I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, and this speaks to the strength of the organization, which is one of the more reliably strong organizations in the entire league. Lamar Jackson does not have a contentious relationship with the Baltimore front office just because they're not doing this contract. Each side understands where the other is, and they haven't been able to close the gap. They're okay with taking it into next spring, putting it to the side for this season, and doing it again next offseason. To the point where they have actually huddled like Lamar and Harbaugh and the GM Eric DeCosta to talk about before their press conferences, like what are we going to say about this? How are we going to stay on message? So we heard Mark Andrews a few minutes ago on this show talk about how locked in he is, how focused he is. Lamar Jackson is a different sort of dude. There are plenty of people that in the final year of their contract would be worried about very little else, if anything. I don't think Lamar Jackson is that kind of guy.
Look, I understand that, but I don't care how different you are. When $230 million are at stake, there has to be some of that in your mind. Now, you keep telling me the Ravens is a different organization. Yeah. I understand, but I find it impossible to believe that everything is just 100. At the end of the day, they're not giving him whatever it is he wants. Yeah. And if anyone deserves